Hey guys, it's Karl, and happy Apple season. We just had the latest keynote event where we got a bunch of different upgrades coming to the Apple line. So of course, the iPad mini beside me, the Apple Watch, as well as the new iPhone. So all of that coverage coming to the channel. Be sure to subscribe if you already haven't. This unboxing though is all about the entry level iPad. So this is the 9th gen iPad now. And in my opinion, this was maybe one of the more underwhelming announcements. Not to say that it isn't important because this is the best selling iPad. It's the cheapest iPad that you can get, but we kind of saw bigger upgrades, say coming to the mini that got a brand new design refresh, whereas this OG iPad still carries the same footprint. I believe this is out now for 5, 6, 7 years. It remains the only iPad in the range that still uses Lightning and still has Touch ID, but we'll get to that in a second. We will do a quick unboxing to see what's inside, and you can see kind of on the box the little iPad silhouette. Same design like I mentioned, available only in 2 colors, so the space gray and silver. And the iPad unboxing is very standard stuff. We've got, of course, the iPad up top. Underneath, we've got the classic user manuals, warranty info, designed by California in Apple. If that's the first time you've heard it here on the channel, it's kind of a running joke. Maybe I should develop a shirt or something that says that. Not too sure if anyone would actually buy that, let me know. But we've also got the quick start guides and a little SIM card slot tool because I do have the cellular version as well. And Apple stickers in white, you'll still get 2. Nice to see that we haven't reduced the box size of the iPad yet. You've got a 20-watt charger and a Lightning to USB-C cable. Nice to see that Apple didn't slim down the box and get rid of the charging cables like they did for the iPhone line. And here is the iPad as it boots up, and you can see cellular version, it's got this little black band up top, but very iconic design for an iPad. It's kind of what we know, what we love. Setup is super simple, and we've got that classic Touch ID button up front. So this is the last iPad that still features a physical button. We're now moving away from that, going into Face ID, but I know there's a big following on the actual little button. I know with COVID, you typically have to enter your passcode on your iPhone, but the more updated iPad Air and that new iPad mini has Touch ID built into the top little button, the on and off button now. And I will say, coming from the iPad Air, the iPad Pros, obviously those are more expensive devices, but going down to their base level model, I haven't seen bezels this big in quite a long time, and I know that Apple is always working to reduce bezel sizes. I wouldn't have minded if they kept that Touch ID button, but kind of shrunk the top forehead. It's massive now. The side bezels, which are still a tad bit chunky, but I can give them that. It's just the front top forehead. I know that front-facing camera has been improved, a new 12 megapixel ultra wide. We now have center stage, but I still don't think it takes up this much space because we have that same sensor on the iPad Airs, and you don't see this giant forehead across any of the other iPad lines. So I think Apple maybe next year could kind of slim that down, make it the same as the side bezels. Just personal preference. What you're getting inside has also been updated, so it now comes with the A13 Bionic. So that came with the iPhone 11/11 Pro. It's a couple years old now though. Apple gives you numbers 20% faster GPU performance. That's of course compared to the previous gen entry-level iPad. But what makes this nice, they still keep that low price point. So $329, and of course $429 if you're here in Canada. I know that our dollar sucks. With that, you get double the storage, so 64 gigs, and I know that's still seems a bit low, but crazy to think that last year's entry-level iPad started at 32 gigs, which was ridiculously too small. I think for that base level option, you can manage to get by, whereas last year, 32 gigs was almost a no-no. You've still got the same all-day battery life and that 10.2-inch display. Like I said, it hasn't really changed dimension-wise, and we now have True Tone, so that will actively change depending the time of the day or depending on the color of the light. So at nighttime, it will become a bit more yellowish. You won't see as much blue light, a bit easier to see, or I guess manage on your eyes. And probably the biggest support coming to the iPad is now the inclusion of some accessories. So you still are limited to the first gen Apple Pencil because it still has Lightning on the bottom. It still has that really weird charging mechanism. So once you've got it paired, you need to stick the OG Apple Pencil into the bottom, and you can now slowly start to juice it up. Once again, the only iPad that can still do this. Not the most clever design, and you always have to watch out. If you actually snap this, you'll probably wreck your lightning port. So just let it juice up, let it sit on the table off to the side. But with that said, you still get a really great writing experience. And although the first gen Apple Pencil is quite old now, it's not as responsive as the second gen, I still think this is better than any other tablet slash stylus combo we've seen on the market, and especially because you can get by at $329, the Apple Pencil, an extra $100. I think this combo is a lot more attractive, whereas last year you'd have to get the 64 gig option, so that's $100 more. You kind of get what I'm saying. It just becomes a lot more entry level and a lot more budget friendly. You also have the option to pair it now with a smart keyboard, and we'll slowly get this out. It now becomes a lot better to, say, browse the web, of course, hammer out emails. Do I think the iPad can be your only device? This is where it comes down to the limitations of iPad OS, and even if you were to grab the more expensive iPad Air, even the $1,000 iPad Pro, I still don't think you can be as versatile and get as much done as you need to get on, say, a laptop. I'll create a separate video comparing every single iPad line, but until iPad OS truly becomes more versatile and less like iOS and more like, say, Mac OS, I still think this is a secondary device. But as, say, a student, maybe if you're in high school, or if the max that you're doing is just word processing, checking out your emails, of course, this becomes a great media device. The screen is great. If you want to use the Apple Pencil to draw, then yeah, the iPad can definitely get by. But say someone like myself that does a ton of video editing, I'm over on Final Cut, there is still nothing that comes close to that experience on iPad just yet. But I do think a lot of people will agree with me on that. But anyways, this is the entry-level iPad. Apple always says this is the best-selling iPad, and I think it's just become more attractive now with that increase in storage, with the accessory support, and still keeping that price point at $330. The chipset has been improved, the performance is great, and unless you have this side by side, say the Mini, the Pro, the iPad Air, you won't really notice too much in terms of stutter. I think that's just a testament to how good iPad OS is. Over on the cameras, like I said, we've got that big improvement coming to the front-facing camera. You'll notice that the most in things like FaceTime, of course, having center stage to include multiple people. If you are that person that takes selfies, still think it looks weird. They look half decent, maybe a tad bit fuzzy, but I wouldn't be too nitpicky with this. On the back, you've got the 8-megapixel rear camera. Like I said, don't be that person that takes photos with your iPad. I think it's the weirdest look. I see a lot of tourists doing it. My mom is a very guilty person that does that as well. So Mom, if you ever watch this, I'm sorry for laughing at you, but you do look a tad bit strange. I do wish we got a bit of a design refresh, especially with that front forehead. I'm not gonna cry about Touch ID. I still think it's a great option to have. And I do still think the entry-level iPad has a solid place in the iPad lineup, especially coming in at that price. It's way cheaper than any other option that you can get. And I know a lot of people do wanna see the iPad mini unboxed, so that will be the next vid. Make sure you're subbed. That video is next on deck, and we've got all Apple stuff, Apple Watch Series 7, and of course, iPhone 13s. Make sure you guys are subbed. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace!